All right, welcome everybody to, this is the inaugural episode of the Prolixonomicon. It is me, Lance Meister, the Undead Viking. I am here with my good friend Travis Chance, and he is my co-host. You may know us possibly from, I do video reviews. He makes board games of the things I do video reviews of, and also he's been a regular contributor to my weekly Alaboom Google Hangout, and since he and I are the only ones that ever end up talking, this is kind of the misbegotten child of our minds. So, hey, Travis.
Hi, how you doing?
I am quite well. Travis, he's more of the impetus of this entire situation. He came up with this idea of the two of us getting together and just talking for at great length about different subjects, and then he also had the wonderful idea of adding a third special guest host and see if we could ever let them get a word in edgewise, and it's up to them to try to break into our conversation. And so he suggested, and I agreed to readily, the idea of adding young Brittanie Boe of the World of Board Game World. And Brittanie, on the off chance that somebody out there doesn't know who you are and what you do, why don't you give us the 60-second biography of your life up from DNA
Okay.
till this point?
Okay, I've been playing board games forever. I love them a lot. I work for GTS Distribution doing marketing communications for them, which means that I do a lot of photoshopping and social media and marketing stuff. Yeah, that's all.
You're a
That's all I
salamander.
got.
You're also a salamander.
I'm also a salamander.
Yes.
I'm a salamander in Heroes Wanted.
And I'm a bad guy in Heroes Wanted, so
You're-
it's quite possible that if people own the game, they've had the two of us fight at some point.
It's true.
I want pictures. If anybody's fighting me against my friends, I need pictures.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I'm just a disembodied, decapitated head in the game. So
You're a human lantern.
there you go. Thanks a lot
Right,
for
but
that.
I still have a reason to beat you up because you're a bad guy.
Yes,
Mm.
it's true, and her card's quite good. Anyway, enough about me. So
About
tonight,
you? That was nothing to do about you at all.
that was kind of the joke. So the
Oh,
whole
okay.
So we should establish this up front. So what we're going to do with this show is we are going to have a broad topic, and then we bring someone on like Brittany, and then we discuss, hopefully not ad nauseum slash ad nauseam. And hopefully Brittany will. The reason we have a format to the show is so that one, Brittany will have a chance to talk, but also two, so that we stay on topic. And so tonight, for our first episode, the topic is what, Lance?
We ballyhooed a few ideas back and forth, and we had quite a few suggestions. But um, I'm a person who loves a good ghost story, and anybody who is anybody has a good ghost story. Even if it didn't happen to them, they have a friend of a friend, or they heard a story when they were at summer camp that one time, or their grandfather told them a story about a ghost train or whatever. And so we're going to talk about ghosts. Now, if you've ever stayed up late listening to like Space like Coast to Coast, the radio show used to be with Art Bell, now it's with George Norrie. They even have like a special like ghost call-in line where you can tell. And if you ever do listen to that show, look, I'm sub-referencing already. Tune in on Halloween, because on Halloween they have a long episode, and all it is people calling in and telling their personal ghost stories, which is actually really, really makes for good radio. And
And this proves the point of the show. I just wanted you to say tonight we're going to talk about ghosts, and now you're referencing radio shows and former hosts. And who has a grandpa that talks about ghost trains?
I do. I had a grandpa that always used to. Well, he didn't talk about a ghost train. He told me he would. Well, we can get into it later, but or now for that matter. But my grandfather once told me a story that he had once heard from like his grandfather about like a ghost switchman who you could that late at night at certain nights you could see him like holding up his lantern. Back when they would like signal to trains by holding up lanterns in the middle of the night and wave them back and forth. He would tell a story about like how there's this ghost switchman, the guy that was in charge of switching the rails, and you could see him, and because like he had, well, I can tell that story later, but just so like yeah. So my grandfather did not about a train so much, but like to do with trains, if you will.
So let's start with like the first question here, which is who believes in ghosts?
My mother.
No, of
My
us.
mother.
Amongst your mother believe yes. When I actually, Brittany, I asked you as a prerequisite for this episode if you believed in ghosts, and could you please repeat the amazing answer you gave me?
My answer was no, I don't believe in ghosts, but I've definitely seen and or heard them.
There we go.
Nice.
That by extension to me is a form of belief. I actually am. I'm not sure if I believe in them. I'm very entrenched in the ancient alien stuff, but when it comes to the supernatural, it's kind of a little out of my comfort zone. I have a very deep and visceral fear of dolls coming to life. So I would I'm not kidding you. I would say at least a half dozen times a year, I will wake up in the middle of the night, turn the lights on, and check under the bed to make sure there's not a doll under the bed. I'm not even kidding.
A clown doll.
A clown doll or just a doll. I don't like it's.
My ex-boyfriend used to hide a clown doll in my closet, so he would fall out on me all the time.
That's horrible, and you're very small.
Was
I'm
so
sure
awful.
it could have done some damage, right? Like even a normal sized clown doll. I don't like I feel like if I saw a doll come to life by way of supernatural forces, I would just die. Like I would just leave my family in the house, or like an escape, or I would die. That is the ultimate, the pinnacle of fear to me would be an animate doll. So Lance, do you believe in ghosts?
Well, my rational mind says that it's just a bunch of hooey. The idea that somebody or something or whatever just is still here wandering about and experiencing this world still. You kind of get in that whole episode of like, oh, is there a life after the one that we're living? And so I mentioned this actually earlier on like on an Alaboom where I said, it's just like I sincerely hope there is more to my existence that goes beyond this, but I would really hope that it was more than just having to stay here, and just kind of walk around and watch everybody else do their thing, and
like a spiritual slacker of sorts.
Well, okay, it's just like think of all the stuff that like you do by yourself when there's nobody else around.
I don't want to talk about any of those things.
No, exactly. But if you believe in ghosts, or you believe in your grandma, watching over you, she's watching you while you're doing those things that you think that nobody else is around, and you're doing them. Admittedly, for a ghost, they're like, who cares? But still, if you think about that for a moment,
yeah, but still, your grandma would know how much time you spend on Reddit.
Well, I've never logged into Reddit ever, so
or see me checking under the bed as a 37-year-old man to make sure that I'm not going to be attacked by a doll.
Well, you can't grow up in the 80s and see Poltergeist with that stupid clown doll and not be freaked out.
It was Chucky that did it.
But even Chucky though, it's a doll. You just pick it up and break it. I've never understood the whole idea that the doll could hurt you.
He's a surly doll. He's very surly. So
he's very surly, but
Brittany, do you think Chucky is scary?
Terrifying.
He's like in the same weight class as you. You're like in that 5 to 10 pound range. Like he could get you.
He could.
What's weird? Okay, go ahead. The whole thing about. God, we're gonna talk over each other, are we? No, the whole thing about crazy dolls. I actually have a story about this. There is in Fargo Moorhead where I live in Moorhead, but Fargo, North Dakota is like right across the river. In Fargo, there is a group of ghost hunters, and I actually there's a local convention, and then they normally have these ghost hunters there, and they do a little symposium and they talk. And I have several stories, so I've talked to several of them, and they've told me lots of like things that they witnessed and whatever. And um, one of the best stories they have is about this lady, this whatever hoarder lady that collected porcelain dolls, and like her entire basement, it would be like your personal hell, Travis. It's like they showed pictures of it. The entire wall is like all these porcelain dolls in these glass cases, like up and down every single wall of her basement, and they've collected. And she said that she'd go down there and like she'd see them move when like she wasn't out of the corner of her eye and things like that. And so they were investigating whether or not her house was haunted. And that was actually kind of the pictures they took of her basement were just spooky regardless, because she had all these these spooky little ghost-looking porcelain dolls just waiting there to jump out and grab you. Turns out it was just her cats walking around inside the cases. They figured out how to get in there, and so she was seeing the cats walk around behind the dolls, and because of all the like mirrors and reflection, it just caused shadows and stuff like that. but so yeah, it was just like, but yeah, that was like one of those cool things. So it's like, yeah, dolls, right? There you go.
So Brittanie, whenever you say that you don't believe in ghosts, but yet you have in some way been in situations with the supernatural, what does that mean?
Yeah, tell us the ghost story.
So I'm going to precursor this with, I have a heart condition. When I was a kid, they put me on medication that made me hallucinated. I have explanations for all of this, but it totally happened.
Okay, I'm listening.
So weird things would always happen in this house. It was across the street from a graveyard in Tumwater, and it was like one of the oldest graveyards in the city. We were literally right across the street, to the point where like one time my older brother, to scare me, decided it was a great idea to pull me out of bed and throw me in a grave that somebody had dug, and then come back to get me like an hour and a half later. Terrifying childhood.
That old gem of a practical joke.
Yeah. So I get home and I constantly see like the back of this person's head as they're like walking through my hallways just out of the corner of my eye. And every time I would go into the room, there would never be anybody there. And so as a kid, I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, are you seeing this too? And she was like, I thought that I saw somebody that looked like you, but then when I called you, you weren't home. So one day I get home from school, and I hear my mom, she's calling me from the stairway, and I'm like, okay, hang on, Mom. And the next thing I know, she's calling me from outside the back porch in the backyard, and I'm like, Mom, where the heck are you? And eventually, she just called me so many times that I'm just like screaming mad at her, and so I go to the kitchen, and I pick up the landline, and I call her on her cell phone, and I'm like, Mom, where the heck are you? Why do you keep calling my name? She was completely serious and said, Brittanie, I'm at work.
That's scary. And were you scared?
Interesting.
How long did you stay in that house afterward?
We stayed in that house for like another 2 years, I think. But eventually I moved to my dad's house.
Oh boy.
Well, okay, here now. This is to bounce off of your statement here. The one of the things that they said about that, like my mother, after all the kids moved out of the house, my mother was like just down doing some laundry or something at my ancestral home, if you will, and she was like walking up the stairs from the basement from the laundry, and like she's it's a bi-level, so she was walking up the stairs to go upstairs, and as she passed by my old bedroom, she swore she heard like one of the kids say, "Hi, Mom," and she turned and whipped around, and of course there's nobody there, and it's just like nobody was there or anything like that, and so she was literally like spooked out. But then I did some research into it, and it turns out that one of the things they say is that, and this is not actually like determined or scientific or whatever, but they say that a lot of people believe that like this sounds silly, but like foundations, like buildings and foundations in wood and stone and concrete, over, have the ability to retain sounds, and they can like then regurgitate them at like weird intervals, like when certain things happen or whatever, and then what happens is they aren't like a full statement, but they're close enough to the idea of the actual words that our brain collects that audio file. Basically, it can't figure it out, and then it, like, it fills in the gaps, if you will, and so it confuses us and tells us that we actually hear words when there
I know
aren't
what
any
you're
words.
talking about. You know what the scientific name for that is, actually?
Is it bullshit?
No, it's ghosts. Um,
but here's the deal. Now, this is the one. I mean, this is one of the few ghost stories I have. And this only happens, and you can explain this away for so many different reasons. But like when my parents go away, my parents had a cockapoo dog. Her name was Pookie, and she lived to be 18 years old. I mean, she was this wonderful family pet. We all loved her. It was very sad. When she was lived to be 18, though, she lived a really long life, and she was a good dog. And when she had no quality of life left over, we made the choice to euthanize her, and it was a very sad and horrible day. But one of the things was that whenever you got home and she'd hear the garage door open, she'd jump off of one of the recliners that she would always sleep on, and she'd run through the kitchen and go to the door to the garage, and you'd hear her nails, click, 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 click on the linoleum, and you get there. If you're coming to the house and like you open up the garage and like you open up the back door, it's like every once in a while you can hear the click, 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 click of the dog coming to the back door. But of course, she's long gone. I mean, she died like 10 years ago. But every once in a while, it's just like unmistakable. You hear the dog run back to the door, and
That's close. That's close to my thing with the dolls, though, because the thing with the dolls is this: think of any movie you've ever seen where a kid is evil or a doll that comes to life. There's always that shot of their feet, and then they go, and then they laugh like an a-hole. It's the obligatory pitter patter shot. They go, and then their little feet go. So your dog is like essentially on the bandwidth of what I'm afraid of.
Well, no, and then of course the rational part of me says that it's not real, because it's just, once again, it's like we're conditioned. I walked into that back door of my parents' house in that garage, 1,000 times, if not 5,000 times, and our brain has gone through that moment, that process every single time. And then the moment that there is a noise or some sort of signal that is like the sound of her nails clicking on the linoleum, it fills in the blanks once again with all the residual past information that it's collected, and it just inserts that in there. It fools me into thinking.
It's like sound muscle memory.
There you go, exactly. Now, of course, but that's like kind of like, the sad thing was, it was like, it's like, or do I want to believe that, my dog is still, puttering around the house and still watching us and still, crawling into, my parents' bed at night and sleeping at their feet just like she always did. And, of course, and that's like a comfort thing that makes people happy when they think about things like that. So, I mean, okay, so, it's just like, so getting back to the whole thing, do I believe in ghosts? Well,
That was 10 minutes.
I'm a very rational person. I'm a very logical person. I usually don't let myself buy into things, but I have had things happen to me. I have one true ghost story that I can't explain. There's just nothing about it that I can ever explain, and it isn't major. It isn't like anything like too spooky. But I mean, it happened, and I can still see it, and I still remember it. I can't explain what happened at all, and that makes me kind of go, maybe. And then the other thing is that like I've had things that are just so coincidental and so perfect that you just wonder. When my daughter was born, she was born very premature. She weighed 2 pounds 10 ounces at birth. So she was in the ICU, or I should say the NICU, and it was very touch and go. And like one of the things that babies that are born premature, one of the very common problems they have, it's called a PDA, which is this valve in their heart that when you're a baby, it remains open because it doesn't. It's just basically a hole in your heart, and then it closes when the baby's like 7 months old. It closes inside. You know, it doesn't matter because it's not breathing, you know, air or anything like that. It closes on its own, and then. And you know, and it's just one of those things. Well, when you have a premature baby, it doesn't close on its own because it hasn't gotten the signal, the proteins or whatever it is that tells it to close. And so when they're born, what they do actually is they actually pump babies full of ibuprofen because ibuprofen like toughens up muscles, and it's one of the things that causes that valve to close. And so they were trying to get this valve to close. And a very common surgery for preemie babies is this heart surgery to close this valve. Of course, it's super scary, the idea of like this little tiny person and you're working on their heart, you know, and so they were like telling us this is one of those things. It's like we're going to try to get it to close on its own, but you know it's very likely that we'll have to do this. And don't worry, the doctor here is amazing at it. He does a great job. But I mean, just the idea of surgery for this little tiny fragile creature, you know, my daughter, it was just horrible, right? So at that time, my grandmother, my last remaining grandparent, she was 91 years old, and you know she was living in town. And she was very infirm, and you know, I went and I told her she had another great granddaughter, and she wanted to come and see her, but she was not mobile enough. I mean, she couldn't see anymore. Macular degeneration had taken most of her sight. You know, she could still hear pretty well. She still had all of her faculties and everything like that, but she was 91, and you know, and she was old, and she had heart problems and things like that, and she just couldn't really get along. And we were trying to figure out how we could get her to come up there and see her, but it just didn't seem like it was going to work. We're just like, well, you know, hopefully when she comes home, we can bring her over and you can see her. Well, sadly, you know, when my daughter was in the NICU, my grandmother passed away. It was just, you know, she was 91. She lived a very full life. You know, she was a wonderful woman, and it was very sad. The day that she passed away, it was on it was a Thursday. And the doctor said, we're going to give her one more day to see if the valve closes before we're going to have her have surgery on Saturday. My grandmother passes away Thursday night. Friday, they're literally, I mean, like they say it didn't close, whatever. Saturday, they're literally prepping my daughter for surgery. They said, we're going to check one more time. They do the echo, and it closed. Now, is it coincidental? Sure. Does the very romantic, very longing part of my heart say that my grandmother found a way to visit her great-granddaughter and cure her? Yes, and that makes me feel good. So, yes, I can see both sides, and I know part of it is me trying to like explain something that I can't explain, but I do feel like my grandmother had something to do with my daughter not having to have surgery when she was a baby. So there you go.
My mom has similar weird stories that she's told me my whole life.
Like what?
Like she had this premonition that she was at the hospital where Barney Clark, who was the first person who got an orangutan heart transplant, was dying, and she had this premonition that she was sitting in the hallway waiting to talk to him, and she went and talked to them. They were like, no, you can't see him, and she kept getting sent away, and so she got really frustrated, and eventually she went home, and in her dream she crawls back into her body, and then like 5 minutes later she wakes up, she turns on the radio, and sure enough the radio says, ding ding ding, breaking news, Barney Clark just died. And my mom was like, what in the hell just happened?
Your mom can astral project?
That was the story that she told me my whole life.
Did you guys see that movie, what was it called, Insidious? About the guy, when he was a kid, he could astral project, and then he, like, passed it on to his son, and then these, like, monster ghost things in this other world were... Did you ever see that movie?
No.
That's not a bad horror movie.
It's
as far as horror movies go, yeah.
You should check it out. They made a sequel. I don't think I saw the sequel. I'm assuming that it's bad because the first one was decent, so clearly they probably want to ruin it and make it bad. I can't say personally. I don't think I've ever really had. I don't think I've ever really had any sort of brush with the supernatural. I will say that I quite often, and I say this, and Nick says that I basically have the world's lamest superpower, because I will, when I do dream, I will dream weird things. Like, for example, I'll dream about an actor that's just like, like John Lithgow. And then later on in the day, I'll be flipping the channels, and it'll, like, later on, it's like, John Lithgow in Raising Cain will just, like, appear on the TV. So in my mind, there's some sort of connection there. Or, like, I have these I don't like to dream, because when I dream, it's, like, extremely real. And
maybe you shouldn't have done all those drugs.
I've never actually done drugs. That's the sad thing. That
is a sad thing.
I've never smoked pot. I lived in New York City for a decade, and I never did drugs. I didn't drink till I was 26. That's boring. The topic is not straight edge. The topic is ghosts. So I will occasionally have these weird things, like where, like, okay, I'll get a word in my head, like a really weird, arbitrary word, and then that word will later, like, for example, recently I was like, Josephine, just for no reason. And later that day I met someone named Josephine that I never met before. Like, why would I just randomly get the name Josephine in my head and then meet someone named Josephine later? So clearly it was the ghost of Josephine Baker at work. But I don't know. Like, I don't. And what's disappointing is I'm extremely open-minded to this kind of stuff. I mean, I would say that I've been living the life of a child, comic book reading, game-playing child, and well into as I approach 40. So the fact that all this cool crap is happening to you guys with, like, ghost dog toenails and orangutan persons, I don't have any of this stuff, is slightly upsetting. So in order to keep us on pace now, we have to change subjects, and this is where we're going to start to talk about things in the culture that the three of us and hopefully all the people that are listening or watching.
Nobody's watching.
No one's watching now, but maybe they'll be watching.
Oh, Paul Tompkins is in, our number one Alaboom fan. So anyway, go ahead.
So let's talk about some things in nerd culture, like movies and shows. So we just talked about the movie Insidious. So what is the best ghost movie, Brittany? What is your favorite ghost movie?
That's embarrassing.
You're going to say Casper, aren't you?
No. I'm going to say Ghost.
Ghost?
Like, you mean with
Patrick Swayze?
Patrick Swayze?
Yeah, like the clay
This?
ghost. So I watched that movie way too young, but it was so good when I was a kid, and I liked it.
That movie's fine.
I don't like actually scary ghost movies. I hate scary ghost movies. I just cry.
You didn't see you haven't seen any of the recent ones that were popular, like The Conjuring or anything like that?
No, I would cry.
Like you don't get scared, you cry instead?
I mean, I do get scared, but like me and my best friend Sharice played Dark Souls, and we played that game for maybe 15 minutes, and by the end of it, we were both crying and had to turn it off. We were just giant wimps.
Well, I'm not okay. I'm not trying to be weird here, but what I don't understand, like you just like it's like it's so intense that you just you.
It's scary.
Oh, I mean, because being scared makes you cry.
Yes.
Okay, well, no, that's fine. I don't follow. You know what I hate is, like, when I'm watching a scary movie, and like, and they're doing the whole build up of the music, and it's getting a little more scary, and then I get that visceral like feeling of like, oh my gosh, like, because they know exactly what to do. There's certain timbres and decibels of music that people, if you play it, it causes you to start to get uneasy. It's just a reaction your body has. You can't fight it, and I don't like that. I don't like the fact that I'm like, oh God, don't go in the basement. He's gonna be down there, and you're just like, you get that moment, and then like I don't like that because I want to be able to like, and I actually find myself like purposely saying, "What do I care? This is a movie," and just like, and I try to take myself out of it. But then that's the whole point of a scary movie, is that it's supposed to be, freaking scary, and just supposed to be something that you aren't expecting or whatever, and so it's kind of like, because I mean, people in a really weird way, I think, kind of like being scared, but they like being safe scared. Just like kind of like, and a movie is safe scared. It's like, oh,
So
okay, and it'll be fine eventually.
What's the most scared you've ever been, Lance? And you've got to keep this under 20 minutes, all right?
Well, there's two stories I always talk about that whenever I say like, honest to goodness, like freaked out, like scared, like my mind, and neither of them are like when I became an adult. When you become an adult, I mean, the most scared I ever was in my entire life, like literally losing when I lost my daughter at a Walmart, like, and she thought she was playing hide and go seek, and so she went and she hid in between, like crawled behind boxes, so she was in like the little passageway in between aisles. So like there's an aisle on either side, and then she's like hiding in the middle, and she's just hiding in there, and she thought it was funny, and I'm like, Rylan, come out, and she's just hiding because she thinks it's funny, and my wife and I are like literally losing our mind, like our daughter's been abducted. I mean, that was like flat out scared. I mean, just because you have this like, I mean, and I'm running up and down the aisle screaming her name, looking for her, and then at that point she thinks she's in trouble, so she's not going to come out, and she's like 3 or 4 years old. And which to their credit, and this is weird, I'm going to actually say to Walmart's credit, as soon as my wife went to the front and said that they couldn't find her daughter, they locked that place down. I mean, like, they had people at every exit, and nobody could get in and out of that store without them like looking at each and every person as they walked out. And,
a ghost could get in there without them.
Well, that's true, but I mean, of course, then somebody found her and then brought her over. I mean, that was like the most relieved I've ever been. So that's literally like, as far as an adult, but that's not really scared. That's just terror. That's just like
real life. That's real life stuff. That's not like supernatural stuff.
Right.
But as far as like a supernatural like thing, two things. My mind would always play tricks on me. Whenever, like when you're kids, in such a weird world that I grew up in, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. I was born in 1971. And whenever I would go out, like literally in the summer, as soon as I was 8 years old, my mother was throwing me out the door and just saying, go, come home for dinner. She gave me enough money to like be able to like go to like a convenience store and buy hot dogs for lunch, and she just sent me on my way, and so she just expected me to come home at a certain time, and and then I'd try to get home. I had a little like Seiko watch or whatever, I could tell the time. But as you got older, like it was just one of those things where you could stay out later and later, and like I was the last kid. Like when everybody was like, okay, let's go to the park and we can tear around and do our thing. And as we're biking home, like that kid that's his house, and that's his house, and that's his house, and that's his house, and finally it's just me, and I'm riding my bike, and I'm all by myself, and I always, to this day, I see myself riding my dirt bike, and like 11 years old, and I'm biking home, and the street lights, because of the way they're positioned, like you see two shadows, and one shadow like shortens, the other shadow gets big. It's the same thing. I'm watching these shadows, and I'm mentally freaking myself out, because in my head I feel like I have to look at those shadows, because I have to make sure that I don't, like, all of a sudden there isn't like an extra shadow, of like something following me, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm biking home and I'm losing my mind, and I'm like, something's going to come out and jump me and eat me or grab me or whatever. And, you just mind races with all these different possibilities. And, like, my mother would yell at me because I had the key, to get in the door. She'd lock the door and close the door, and I had the key to get in. But the whole thing is that, as you know, in every movie, the monster never grabs you when you're a block away from your house. Your monster grabs you when you're almost about ready to go open the door and be safe. Get in that house, then you'll be safe. So that's when they're going to get you. And I'd get that key out of my pocket, and I'd have that in my hand. I'd be biking, and I would bike right into my front lawn, and I'd just jump off my bike and I'd like run to the door and unlock pocket, and I leave my bike out on the lawn, and my mom would tell me all the time, "Put your bike in the garage." Just like somebody's gonna steal it. You don't leave it out in the yard. And I leave it on the yard every night because I was just so freaked out. I mean, and that's just like me in my own ridiculous imagination.
What
Buying
about you,
into.
Brittany? What's the scariest thing that ever happened to you? What's the most fear you've ever felt in your entire life? Was it when you were playing Dark Souls?
Maybe. I don't know. I guess it. Are we talking supernatural stuff or normal stuff?
Period. Because whenever I'm getting ready to tell you the worst fear I've ever felt story, and you guys are not even going to believe it because it has nothing to do with dolls or the supernatural. It has to do with camping.
Okay. God, I sound like a crazy person. I hate telling these stories because then I'm reminded that I'm a crazy person.
What's the story?
There was my mom when we were little used to always ask us things like, "Are you sensing something?" And we would answer yes or no. And usually, like, we kind of thought it was a fun game, but then, like, as I got older, I was like, "Oh shit, my mom believes this." Oops, sorry, language.
Fun.
And she believed it, and I was surprised. But when I was about 8 or 9 years old, it was me, my mom, my cousin, and my brother all driving in this car, and we were driving down the freeway going from like Olympia to Shelton. And my mom suddenly the car starts slowing down. My mom goes, "Are you sensing something?" And like all of us are looking at her going like, "Yes." And we were all like freaked out for some weird reason, and nobody could put our fingers on it. So the car seemingly slows itself down. My mom's like, "I didn't do that. I don't know why the car's slowing down." We pull over to the edge. And then, like, 2 seconds later, a car comes zooming towards us, and it, like, flips around and lands in the ditch. And my mom gets out of the car to go, like, help whoever's in there. And, of course, some people are like, "Hey, get away from there, get away from there." And my mom was freaked out. We were freaked out, right? Scary things. Anyway, the people got my mom away from there, and then we found out this guy had a gun, and like he was trying to kill himself and multiple other people, and he had a whole plan, and he didn't do it because his seatbelt got stuck.
That's scary. Do you guys want to know my scary story? My big fear?
No, not even a
The
little.
most fear I've ever felt in my life. So I went camping. I was living in New York, and I started dating this girl who was just a nightmare. And like I felt like I was dating her for two reasons, because she was attractive and because we had so many mutual friends. Have you ever met someone where like you have the same pool of friends but you've never met each other? And then there's that chance crosswire. So I met this girl. She had broken her leg for the second time that year. First time she broke her leg was she was dressed like a peanut M&M for Halloween and fell down 2 flights of stairs. And then the second time she tried to jump off her balcony or something onto another balcony on a dare and broke her leg. So she was a winner. So I went camping with her, and we got into this giant argument about Walmart. We were going up to what's the national park in Northern California that's like the big one, like the awesome one with the big trees and all that crap? Redwood, is that what it's called?
I don't know. Why are you asking me?
We went to this thing called the Strawberry Festival on some damn mountain in Northern California. So we get there, and the night we get there, I'm so pissed off at this because she's like, hippie dip and all this stuff, and I'm like, you're being ridiculous. We're arguing. So I say I'm gonna sleep in this hammock. So I go and I sleep in this hammock, and I'm looking up at the stars, and it's really amazing. And there's people everywhere. There's like thousands of people come to this festival, but everyone's asleep. So she goes in the tent, so I fall asleep in the hammock, and then I just wake up to something going and hitting me, and I'm like, what the? And then it's smelling me, and I realize I'm being smelled, and I'm zipped all the way up in a sleeping bag in a hammock, so I'm like like a human burrito, and it takes me a few minutes to figure out that what's smelling me is a bear. I'm being probed by a bear, not when I say probe, not like rectally probed. Like, the bear was taking its nose, and it was trying to figure out where the sleeping bag in the hammock, where they ended. So it had to be like 45 minutes of this thing just rooting around, and I couldn't move. And all I could think the whole time, and it was so sad, was two things. I'm gonna die. Like my girlfriend's gonna wake up tomorrow and find my corpse, and we were gonna fight about Walmart. And then the second thing I thought was, all I could think was, do you guys know who the comedian Jim Gaffigan is?
Hmm.
He has this skit about.
He's the guy who has one joke where he talks like this. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
he looks like Joel Eddy.
Sorry.
He.
Well, yeah,
he
totally.
He does look like Joel. Joel Eddy's like could be his older bodyguard brother. He has this joke about like who came up with the idea that whenever a bear is attacking you or whatever, you're supposed to play dead. He's like, doesn't that sound like something a bear would say? So the whole time I'm just thinking this, and I couldn't move. I knew I had like a car keys in my pocket, and I knew I could hit the alarm, and maybe that would scare it away. And then finally, it just left me alone, and then I could hear it like clanging through the campground. And in the morning, it like a tube of toothpaste, and I just unzipped the bag, and I ran and I dove into the tent. I didn't open the tent. I hit it so hard that the tent like collapsed, and I kneed my girlfriend's sister in the face at full force, screaming, "There's a bear!" Everyone's like, "You're full of crap. There's no bear." Oh, you wake up in the morning and there's these giant bear turds everywhere. It's eaten a tube of toothpaste. It like chewed up a bunch of Solo cups for some reason. And that was the scariest moment of my life. Again, very, very real fear. And you think when you think fear as a privileged American, you're like, oh crap, how am I going to pay this bill? Or oh man, my transmission of my car went out, or something like that. You don't think I'm going to be devoured by a bear in a sleeping bag when I'm going on a camping excursion surrounded by thousands of people and no one is helping me. But that was and maybe it was a ghost bear. Maybe it was maybe it was a spectral bear, but I don't think it was.
No, it was probably just a real bear. And if it was a black bear, they pretty much will
It's
leave
African
you
American
alone.
bear, please.
Oh, nice. No, seriously, if it's a black bear, they'll only get feisty with you if it's a mom with her cub. Mostly with the black bear, you just need to stare at it. I mean, honestly, if you ever run into a bear, I've heard many people either make a bunch of noise because it doesn't like noise. It doesn't like clanging pots and pans together
But
and just stuff like that. It doesn't
doing
like it.
exactly what you're describing. It was in the campground, rooting through crap, banging cups around. It was
Well,
like,
no, but
it was like
there's a
when
big difference between it.
the sound effects were
Go
like.
ahead.
Imagine if you watch the Hobbit movie that came out recently, where Frodo is like having a panic attack because all the dwarves are just like busting plates up and cheersing each other with cups. It sounded like that. I don't know how know how it didn't wake anyone up, because it was like I felt like I was in if they made the TV show Cheers into an action movie or something. It was like just all these sort of like kitchen sounds going on at a high volume. But the park ranger told me he thought it was probably a juvenile black bear. He said they get curious and they'll come in the campground and kind of check stuff out. But I mean, I didn't know that. I couldn't see anything, so it was like scary.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Go ahead. Just let me tell you one thing about bears. I used to go on this trip every year. We haven't now for a few years now, but this trip up in Canada to go fishing, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and you have to fly in on one of those seaplanes, and it lands right in the lake, and you get out, and they just leave you up there for a week, and you just smell and everything, but you get really good fishing and stuff like that. Well, one time my brother and I were there, and we there's little cabins that you stay in. And I was sleeping in a cabin, and he was sleeping in a cabin across, like, there's a little campsite, and then there's a campfire in the middle and whatever. And I kind of woke up, and I'm just, like, kind of yawning, and there's no real bathroom. I mean, there is, but it's like a hole up on the hill, and well, you're a dude, so you just go find a tree, right? And I'm gonna go and take care of business, and I go to the screen door to open up this cabin. I look out, and there's this freaking giant black bear sitting in the middle of our camp, and it's like digging around and looking through our stuff, like you say. He's looking for food, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? I mean, I've got a door. It isn't going to come over and like walk in and say hi. I don't have to worry about that. But then I look and I see my brother, and he's staring at me, and I'm staring at him, and And I was like, what do we do? And everybody else is off fishing, and we're just sitting there, and we're like, I don't know, what are we gonna do? And we're kind of just sitting there staring at each other, and then like we're we started slamming banging our doors, and like it's looking around at us, and I didn't want to like make it want to come over, but I just wanted to kind of get rid of it. So he eventually got the hint, and he left, but he grabbed this giant jug of cooking oil that we had, and he was put it in this big giant muzzle and just lumbered up this hill on this kind of path that there was, and he wanders off, and my brother and I get out and we kind of look around, we're picking stuff up, and we just kind of follow it up to see where it is, and he went about maybe 50, 60 feet away from us, and he chewed the top off that thing of cooking oil, and he drank the whole thing, and I was sitting there watching him eat this, and I was just like, oh man, that guy's gonna have gut rot. That's gonna be so bad. I have no idea. And then, of course, the next day, about like when I was walking up to check out the facilities or whatever, the little hole in the ground, there was this giant pile of what could only be described as black bear diarrhea. That was just in this giant pile. I should have taken pictures. It was a thing of beauty. But that's my black bear story. I can't even imagine sitting there drinking cooking oil. Like 2 or 3 gallons of it. But apparently, it's really tasty for them. So
we were talking about movies and TV shows. About
you react to my story. You react to my story. You don't change the subject. You react to my story about my BlackBerry.
So what's the scariest movie?
You know what? I'll tell you scary movies right
Bears, what's the scariest movie?
If you're looking for like spooky ghost movies, I think it's so rare to find a really good one that doesn't break down towards the end. It's because there's lots of good movies that like kind of have a really, really good build up. Like, oh, weird spooky things are happening. I wonder what's going on. That kind of thing. But the payoff is always tough because you either have to go one or two routes. You have to go full supernatural, in which case it kind of removes you from the movie, because all of a sudden, like, here you have like, oh, it's bumps in the night, or strange lights or shadows, and you're like, okay, that's a little odd, but it's kind of almost half believable. And then you get to the point where
what'd you say?
Demon movies are good.
Yeah,
Demon movies are good. I love Drag Me to Hell is a great movie. If you ever watched that one. Are you familiar with Drag Me to Hell?
I saw that. Yeah, it's okay.
But that's about a woman who basically.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. This is your job. You're supposed to interrupt us.
Yeah, don't say go ahead. Fight.
So I'm really bad with names and I have a really bad memory. But I remember I watched a bunch of like 80s horror films with Pinhead and a bunch of other creepy characters that were reoccurring characters, and I loved those movies.
The Cenobites.
The first Hellraiser is a trip. The first Hellraiser is a trip of a movie. That's a good movie.
Yeah, it's scary. That's some of the...
I wouldn't say it's so scary as it's just really it's Clive Barker's kind of weird world of like crazy otherworld omnipotent beings is kind of really interesting and exciting in a weird way. I mean, so I'd say that.
Did you guys ever see
honestly
Entity with Barbara Hershey? I think that ghost movie is way
the Entity. Oh yeah, definitely. That's a good. There's a movie called The Changeling. That is, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the actor that stars in it. Great movie about a guy who, he's an author, and then like at the very beginning they always have, lots of those movies they have to have something bad happen to the person, and so like his car breaks down with his wife and his child, and their station wagon or whatever, on this like snowy road or whatever, and so there just happens to be a phone booth nearby, and so he goes over to make a call for a wrecker or whatever, and his his wife and his daughter sit there and are having a snowball fight or whatever, and of course the truck that has the brakes fail comes around the corner and runs over his family in front of him, so he sees it happen because he's in the phone booth and he's looking over at him, so, and then that sets up the fact that like he's like depressed and despondent, but he's a writer. He's not a writer. He's a composer. He's trying to write music, and so then he rents this old house in the middle of nowhere, and he tries to like get away from it all and get back to his composing. And so then he and then of course the house is haunted, and then slowly but surely like crazy and horrible things happen, and he starts getting to the bottom of the mystery of what happened in the house. And that's a really good movie. It's an older movie. I think it came out in the early 80s.
Yeah, 1980, starring George C. Scott.
George C. Scott, that is exactly correct. It is there. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but there's like this. He's one of the first creepy things that happens. It's like he's sitting there and he's playing the piano, and he's like composing, and he's like plays something, and then he composes and he plays something, and he hears this thumping noise, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he wanders over, and there's like, of course, it's an old house, so it's got the old rickety, stairway that goes up into the top floor of the house, and all of a sudden he sees this like rubber ball like bounces down the stairs and kind of lands at his feet, and he kind of sits there and he looks at it, and like he kind of looks up the stairs and he's like, well, where the hell did this come from, right? So he picks it up and he goes to the front door of his house and he just throws it out into the yard. He just like whatever, and he goes back and he's like doo-doo-doo-doo, playing the music or whatever, and he hears the thumping noise again. And he walks over, and the same rubber ball bounces down the stairs again. And he's just like, it's like, of course, most people then, of course, would leave the house, but not this guy. He investigates it and finds out the evil. Well, that's true, but he finds out the evil that happened in the house.
They should just make a story about what Brittanie said, where like the person leaves, and then like they go to a diner and eat, and then they have like a one-night stand with the fry cook, like that. Then that's the whole movie. And then like he's like, yeah, there's this rubber ball, but now I'm in love with you, or whatever.
I sent movers to go back and get my stuff. I'm not going back there. The thing that always bothered me. I mean, like remember those like Paranormal Activity movies, and people were like all talking that up and everything, how amazing it was, and I went to go see it.
With the baby monitor.
Well, yeah, I mean, I went to go see the first one, right? And I'm sitting there watching it, and you can have the people in the house do stupid things. I'm okay with that, but it's just don't make it so obviously stupid that nobody would like act in the way that they do. Because in that movie, it's like, yeah, what's going on? My girlfriend's in a coma. She hasn't eaten in 2 days, and she slashed her own wrists. But I told her we should go to the hospital, and she said she just needed to rest. So I'm going to go downstairs, and I'm going to assume everything's okay. No, throw her in your car and drive to a hospital.
Maybe that's just not the dynamic of their relationship. Maybe she's a really domineering woman and the guy's a little weak-willed,
I don't know. At that point, I was like, you deserve to die. And when he did, I was happy. I was like, good.
So what about
you brought this on yourself.
Brittanie, what's your favorite supernatural themed game? Preferably a game that has ghosts.
We can't talk about board games. What are you talking about?
Board games or video games?
Either. Both.
Okay. Video games, I'm going to get real nerdy here. Game Boy Color, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the RPG.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to go with.
Fantastic video game. The ghost in it. Stupid good video game. Seriously, best video game ever put on a Game Boy Color. And then board games, probably Betrayal at the House on the Hill. I'm not super into ghosts.
Betrayal is such a horrible game.
I really enjoy it, but I really, really, really enjoy some really silly games. It's just about who you're playing with.
I'm not saying that like you can't like it by any means, but I mean it's just like I've never betrayal always upsets me because it's like the two halves of the game never tie together. I mean the first half is just I'm just gonna blunder around this house and hopefully I get the right equipment or hopefully I'm doing the right thing and when we reveal our haunt then either I've been doing the right thing and I'm going to have a good chance of winning or I'm just screwed now at this point. I mean, it's just I don't know.
We played 2 games this weekend, and it was really fun because they both went really quickly. Our haunts happened way too soon, and so like in our first game, the haunt happened. It was an alien scenario, and I ended up being the last person left, and then the alien killed me too, and we all died because the haunt happened way too soon. In the second one, like we had barely gotten anywhere explored in the house, and then all of a sudden the hunt happened. The house gets lifted up into the air by like this giant bird thing, and there's only 2 parachutes left in the house, so it was just a scramble to either murder each other or fight each other for the parachutes, and then the first person out the front door won. And that scenario was just so epic, and it played in 45 minutes. It was beautiful.
Well, that's probably a good thing that it didn't last long. But as far as games, like computer games, this isn't like Ghosts, but the Walking Dead games for like the PlayStation, and I think it was on other things too. I played the first one of that, the first Walking Dead game, which was I think it was on the PlayStation 3 when I played it. I was really impressed with how much that game made me kind of like when you were fighting zombies, like it put you in situations where like you were like you had difficulty in the situation instead of just like, well, here they come, just like standing 20 feet back and plugging them in the head. But it also made you really care about the people. Like it did because like the whole, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I have a daughter, because that game like it puts you in a position where you're playing a character that their entire role is they find this little girl and he promises that he will protect her and take care of her. And so like you kind of play through that, and that's your whole thing. And so it kind of really sank home for me, And as an aside, I can't mention that game without mentioning Last of Us, which was maybe the best story of any video game ever. I mean that was just I mean, the gameplay was kind of normal and it was just there, but you felt like you had to play through that entire game just so you could get the entire story. And talk about an opening scene where it just takes your heart and rips it out of your chest, and you're just like, what game am I playing here? This is horrible. It's just like you're just, and if you own a PlayStation, you haven't played The Last of Us, you definitely.
But it's only their platform, right? Because I have like an Xbox 360, so.
Oh well, get with the next, get with the times, son, and
I'll
the rest
play
of
a
the
video game like once every 18 months, and I'm involved in one now, which is Shadow of Mordor, which I like. It's a little redundant, but I like it.
No, Shadow Mordor is a good game. It's based off the same fight engine that the Batman Arkham games have, and which, strangely enough, was originally supposed to be a like dancing game model. That was what the engine was made for. So like the fight sequence, if you think of it, it was supposed to be for like button mashing for putting your character through a dance sequence was the original purpose of that engine, which is kind of funny if you think about it. And then it became Batman fighting thugs, and then it eventually became a guy chopping orcs' heads off. So
what about Ghost Stories? No one mentioned Ghost Stories as a board game.
Well, Ghost Stories is a great co-op game, but it doesn't really feel like Ghosts. I mean, it just feels like kind of a kung fu game, I mean, I don't know. I think Ghost Stories is one of the best co-ops out there, in my opinion, just because it's brutal. I mean, it's just like even you can play that game perfectly, and you're just still not going to win. And it's very, very difficult. And I think they did Antoine Bauza did a great job with that one.
Have you ever used a Ouija board, Brittanie?
Pardon?
Have you ever used a Ouija board? That's technically a board
Don't
game.
you? That's not a
Oh, a
board
Ouija
game.
board? Yeah, of course.
I've
Did you know
never
the Ouija boards? Did you know the Ouija boards weren't even a thing? They just created them and said that they were a mystical thing, and then all of a sudden it was. Ouija boards were never like they were never like something steeped in the occult by any means. It was just somebody said, "Wouldn't it be cool if we kind of came up with this like fake idea of a way to talk to dead people," and then they ran with it. So
It was like the first. It was like the first cell phone.
it wasn't a cell phone.
It's like a pager.
Right, but I got to call my dead grandma, right?
Yeah, it's like a beeper.
No.
Supernatural.
Well, don't you remember when you were a kid and you have the big sleepover and like that would be one thing, you get the Ouija board out and everybody puts their finger on it and they're like, oh, who's the smartest one? And you're trying to push it towards your letter of your first letter of your name. It's obviously heading towards the L. You know, just like it's like no, it isn't.
I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, so I did not have any fun things.
Fun.
Potentially satanic things like that going on in my childhood.
Or did you ever do the light as a feather, stiff as a board? Remember doing that when you were little kids? Yeah, and it's just like, oh, how? And you'd like, oh, how are we lifting this person? Well, because all of you have like 2 fingers underneath this person's body, and they weigh 120 pounds, and there's 10 people around them. That's why. Even though it's just a finger, you're still using your full arm to lift them. You know, and,
Lance, you're such a party pooper. Why can't you just believe that?
I know. I just it's because it isn't. You know. But I mean, no. Okay.
Believe that whenever you play that game, your arms are being haunted momentarily, giving you supernatural-like strength, which allows you to lift a child of like age into the sky using merely 2 fingers.
Have you ever actually looked in a mirror and said Bloody Mary 3 times?
Never. Nope.
Yep.
Did she show up? Did she appear behind you?
No, but my sister poured red food coloring into the toilet to freak me out.
Ah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Bloody Mary, quite literally. She should have poured Bloody Mary mix into the toilet.
There you go. Well,
No,
throw a
I
pickle
don't
in
think
there,
my
make it a
stepmom would've
Caesar.
let her get away with that. She would have been drinking them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is Bloody Mary really like why is she named after what I consider to be one of the grossest beverages of all time?
I don't know. I mean, I don't remember the whole story about Bloody Mary. Wasn't it like she killed her kids or something? Or I don't know.
It's a billion different stories. It's just a scary story that people tell their friends to freak them out.
Yeah.
So many
No. Well, say Candyman then. Remember that? That was. No, that's a good
The best
classic.
part of that movie is whenever they're in the police lineup and then all the different guys have to go, I hear you're looking for Candyman, bitch. Like, and they all have to say it. That part of the movie is so funny. Oh, my God.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Virginia Madsen was in that. That's back when she was
oh my gosh.
Philly.
I remember
2 or some crap.
You remember the movie? I'm trying to remember. Was it called Event Horizon, where it was like the weird space station right on the right next to the black hole?
I thought it was going to be so good. It was like they made a haunted house movie in a spaceship. Yeah, it was.
But they had the best line of all things because wasn't I can't remember. Who was the black captain?
Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne. So like here you have Lawrence Fishburne, this very like relatively like famous serious actor, and he's playing this movie, and so like somehow they've like Sam Neill or whatever opened up this portal to hell or whatever, and beyond the Event Horizon and let in these other demons or whatever, but. Like literally, I busted out laughing. I was there with a buddy of mine and his wife. We were at this movie, and we're watching this, and they've been trying to decipher that weird message that was supposedly coming from out of the black hole, and they're trying to decipher it, and they're trying to figure out what it was, and then so eventually like the guy figures it out, and he's like, oh, I finally like decoded it or whatever, and then Lawrence Fishburne, they're all sitting there and they show me on the screen, and it shows like the last moment of the ship before them that was there, and it shows all these people like murdering each other and like just forming necrophiliac acts and just blood everywhere. There's a guy walking around that he's got both of his, like, two eyeballs in his palms, and he's walking and he's talking in tongues or something like that. And it's just, and like, literally, Lawrence Fishburne turns off the TV. We're leaving. That's all he said. It's just like, for the first time ever in a horror movie, like when faced with ultimate evil, somebody just finally said, "Yeah, we're done. Okay, just pack it up. Just we're gonna go." And then of course it was too late. They left too late. So
I was afraid that when Brittany turned the screen back on, it was going to be Bloody Mary and not her.
Oh, I know. Well, has she turned the screen back on? I haven't seen her yet.
Sure. Her head's on backward though, kind of like acting.
Oh.
You know, I had a scary thing actually happen with my daughter when I went in the middle. Like she kind of like whimpers. She's going to be a year old here on this June 2nd, and she like whimpers in her sleep. And so typically, well, we're sleep training her now, but before we'd bring her a bottle and she'd just kind of go back to sleep. But this one time I walked in the room, when I opened the door, she like crawled on her hands and knees like out of nowhere in her sleep, like super fast. Like, you know, when the girl does the Exorcist stare thing with her head backward. It was like the baby equivalent of that. She just went and went all the way across her crib, and I was like, shit! Like, I was so scared. I'm like looking at her. I didn't even want to touch her.
I would have been scared too.
No, it was.
I once, when my daughter was young, and my daughter has like never. She's gotten her hair trimmed once, but it's like she has very, very long hair, so it goes all the way down like to her buttocks, if you will, and it's just like super long and it's dark and like I remember I got up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom, and I got up and I used the bathroom, and then like you have that thing where like it's really bright in the bathroom with the light on, and then like you turn off the light, and like for the moment, like there's a moment where you can't really see anything because of the lights, your eyes are getting used to it. And I opened up the door, and I had woken up my daughter, and she was standing in the doorway with like the night light out in the hallway, so illuminating her behind her, and she had her hair all like straight and just all down, and like just standing there right out of the ring, and I literally like, John! And she had no idea, you know. I mean, but like literally, it was just like this little demon child like standing in front of me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, yeah, I was just like, all of a sudden, bam, my heart rate, just spikes up, the adrenaline, my entire body's shaking, and she was just like, I just woke up, Daddy. It's like, that'll get me going. But yeah, that was kids do spooky things. The thing about I mentioned this earlier, like those ghost hunter guys, like the one guy in the group, all of them are like just buy into it way too much. I mean, I think it's at a certain point, I think people that believe in spirits or ghosts, I mean, they have something happen in their lives that they just can't explain any other way, and they just will say it. I remember I had friends who used to say, oh yeah, I used to like, I won't go to that park anymore. Well, why? Oh, because demons are in there. I was like, what? Yeah, I was walking through there the other night, and about a month ago, and this demon all of a sudden appeared in front of me and told me I needed to leave, and I was just like, okay.
Doing mushrooms.
Well, that's just it. It's just like, it's like, dude, you seem like a pretty normal person. I mean, I don't know. I just assume,
like,
yeah. Just
guys like, this other night I did an 8-ball of Coke, and the next thing I knew, a sentient pumpkin was threatening my cousins. It's like, yeah. My dad is, is a Jehovah's Witness, and demon is like a normal word in his vocabulary that he uses to describe things. So he'll be
my mom is too.
He's like, the lights went off. He'd be like, demons. I'm like, no, it's look around. There's a power outage. They're everywhere. It's like, no, Dad, it's really not demons. Oh, like one time there was graffiti on he saw graffiti and he goes, that's the work of demons. And I'm like, I think it's the work of teenagers.
It's because demons possess teenagers, don't you know? That's what my Catholic mom told me.
So nefarious.
But I can't listen to my Catholic mom because my Lutheran grandma told me not to.
Nice. There's a conflict of interest in there somewhere.
So
No, hold on. So let me talk about this. So like the one guy, shut up. The one guy, this ghost hunter, the one guy that's like rational, and he's like, I go into every single one, and I say this isn't real, and I try to disprove it, and that's like his whole attitude. and he was kind of going through all these ones that he disproved. Like there was this really cool one where these people said that like, oh, like at certain times of the night they'll see shadow people walk down their stairs. And like, well, that's pretty spooky, right? You know, and they're like, well, when does this happen? And it's like, oh, it doesn't happen every time, but when it happens, it's like, you know, between 9 and 11 at night, you know, and it just happens at certain moments. You just happen to be looking, and you'll see a shadow person walk down the stairs, and so they're okay, you know. And then they kind of looked at the stairs and they saw that there was like windows like that outside, and they're like, okay, and they kind of went and looked at like the street lights, and if there were any street lights that would off or go on at certain intervals. They couldn't find anything like that, and they kind of drove cars around in front of the house and tried to like get their headlights to shine in there and represent it. They couldn't figure it out, and so they were just like, huh, you know, it's like they couldn't really figure it out, and they hadn't witnessed it yet. And so finally, like, they just kind of were like there, and then as by chance they happened to be there one night, and they saw it. They saw this weird shadow like move, and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, there it is, you know, we got it, you know, what is it? And they figured out that their house was in perfect alignment for when planes coming from Canada would fly into the airport, and the lights from the jets at a certain point of night they'd shine into the windows, and it would move really quickly, and it would cause this weird little shadow to walk down the stairs. And it was just like, well, there you go. Your house isn't haunted. It was just something really boring because you have an airplane that flies overhead. And it's just like, and I like it when people find those things. It's just like they take something really spooky and then they give it a real explanation. Not because I'm trying to like ruin things for people. I don't know. I guess I do like when the nutballs are proven incorrect for whatever reason. You know, it's just, and when you're young, it's fun to believe in ghosts, and it's fun to like think of those things as being real. But then, as you get older, you're like, well, you know, now every single person in the world has a camera on them, 24/7. Why haven't we seen a really, really good picture of a ghost yet? I mean, why did the ghosts all of a sudden realize that we all had cameras? And okay, Bob, we can't actually manifest anymore. We can just do spooky noises. Oh, it bothers me. Same thing with UFOs. I mean, it's like, why is it like everybody saw a UFO?
Hold on.
No. I mean, we can touch that sometime. But why is it that, like, you know, it's like in the '60s. Everybody saw UFOs when they had these cameras. They couldn't take old Polaroids. They couldn't take a picture worth of shit.
Now the aliens know better, duh.
Exactly. They just, maybe the aliens gave us our cell phone technology.
It's the same bandwidth as how Ebonics moves, so that you can never keep up and be cool with it as a white guy. The aliens are evolving so that we can't see them.
Haley.
Our technology is just too slow. It's the same type of thing. Same model there. Now I want to ask Haley. I'm not. I want to ask Brittanie. I'm sorry. What's her name again? Adelaide.
Adelaide.
That just sounds like a band name or something to me.
Sounds like a drug that I need to take to keep my blood pressure down.
So I want to ask Brittanie some questions because we're already going outside the bandwidth here, our goals. so Brittanie, if you had to be a ghost and you had to haunt a person, who would you haunt, and why?
That's a good question.
For example, would you be for revenge? Would you want to haunt them, you know, to watch over them?
Right. I think I would honestly just try to haunt the most interesting person that I knew at that time, just because then I would have something to do.
Like you'd haunt like David Lynch or something.
I don't know. I'd just haunt somebody that was interesting, and I wouldn't necessarily want to scare them. I would just want some form of entertainment.
Okay, I accept that answer.
What were we going to do if you didn't?
That's a good answer. I like that answer. Like, I feel like if you asked me that, I would think of like a list. I have like a running list of people that if like the government would say there are no consequences if you assassinate these people, like they would be gone. So I would haunt them out of like vengeance. So that that's a better answer than my answer, which is like morbid and very telling about me as a person. So you just want to
Don't
be,
want to be on your bad side.
you want to people watch. That's all. Um, so if you had to be a ghost from any era, what era would you want to be a ghost from?
What do you mean an era? What do you mean
Like if
you
she
you can
had died, like if she had to be a ghost that represented an era, what era would do you think that would be the best era to be a ghost from?
that's
To
a
be
horrible
locked,
question.
to be locked in time in that era, like like an '80s ghost that has like bad flip hair forever,
Imagine being a ghost right now in this era and being able to creep on everyone browsing on the internet.
like a ghost that had grinder.
No, just a ghost. The ghost could just sit in your room behind you, watching everything that you browse, silently judging you.
But don't you feel like people today? I mean, Lance and I are much. Well, I won't say much older than you. We're older than you. So Lance is older than me, and I'm older
Yes.
than you. So don't you think like it would be a like kind of a jaded ghost? Have you ever heard Aziz Ansari's joke about why ghosts like do things like turn lights off and on and turn water off and on? It's because like they
No.
didn't have indoor plumbing or electricity, so they're just like super excited. They're just like testing things out over and over again. They're amazed by he's like, and he says like, if you died now and then you were a ghost, you would just be like in a corner somewhere like complaining about how like you'd be complaining about how like you weren't getting good Wi-Fi signal in their house or something.
Well, that's weird though. If you think about it, like, so if you're a ghost and like, for whatever reason, until you, satisfy whatever it is that you need to do, which just made me think of a show called Dead Like Me, which was sadly,
I love that show.
oh, that's such a good show. I mean, the whole idea that like you become a Grim Reaper and you have to be a Grim Reaper until you reap whatever number that's been given to you, and then you move on to whatever it is that you move on to.
Yeah.
And I remember that one scene where she sees all the Reapers in the in the park that are like sitting there playing horseshoes, and then it's like, well, what are those guys? And he was like, oh, those guys are like the Plague Reapers, and it's like, but nobody dies of the plague anymore, and so they're just stuck. They're never going to be able to move on. And they see that little girl like sitting there feeding a squirrel or whatever, and they all stop and they look to see if like maybe she'll get bit, and then some sort of disease will be transmitted, and then they might have a shot. But I mean,
Yep.
I love that mentality. Oh, and how about I mean, if you've never seen this, you're too bad, Travis, but that movie had like one of like the like most poignant but like sad but like bittersweet moments when Rube tracks down his daughter who's still alive, and he gets to see her, and she realizes that it's her dad who's there at the end, and oh my gosh, I mean I'm getting all kind of weirdly choked up at that moment because he was killed and never came home. He never made it home to his
Spoiler alert.
daughter. Yeah, well, this show was what, 2006, 2007, I think.
So what? What if
But
I
yeah,
died in 2006 and I was a ghost and I had to watch that show for eternity or something? You're ruining everything.
anyway, so he tries to find his daughter, and one of the things that you can't do as a Reaper is you're not allowed to interact with your former family. And the thing is, you don't look like you did before, and so they haven't. But they but like
Because you're a Reaper in a human body.
yes, and so but the Yeardley Smith, who does the voice of Lisa Simpson, was a Reaper, and she was a person that worked at the old folks' home or nursing home or assisted living or whatever you want to call it, that his daughter was at, and she was like 90 some or whatever, and then on the last and he finds her, and then this friend of hers, the Reaper, says, yes, but, her time's coming. And then, like, on the last day that she's alive, he shows up, and he sings her the same song that he always used to sing her before she went to bed, and she realizes that her dad is there, to kind of help her along in the last day of her life. Oh my gosh, it's just like,
well, now
it's
I
like because
show.
No, because Rube goes through, and who played brilliantly by Mandy Patinkin in the show. Rube goes through this incredible story arc over the course of the 2 seasons that show was on TV, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, that show was so good.
Was it Kevin Smith's show or whatever?
No, I don't know who did this. It's the same guy who did Pushing Daisies, right? If you remember.
Is it the same person?
For some reason, I think it is. I could be wrong.
I think I just associate those two with each other because they were kind of similar.
My wife loves Pushing Daisies.
And how criminal is it that show only got the little bit of time that it got? Pushing Daisies was a great show.
Really upsetting.
If you ever noticed that the creator of Pushing Daisies actually, it was online for the longest time, but actually wrote out the story arcs of each character and how, if the show had lasted more seasons, what would have happened to each character and what he had planned. So that's something, if you're a fan of the show and you want some sort of closure, you can definitely look that up online. It's pretty cool. So there you go. That's your homework, Brittany.
Made by Brian Fuller.
Yep, I think it's the same guy. Whatever you do, if you're a fan of Dead Like Me, don't watch the movie they made. That follow-up movie was awful. It was horrible. So it'll ruin the show for you, quite honestly.
It didn't ruin the show. Don't be that dramatic. It wasn't that bad. It just wasn't good.
It was horrible. It was just so bad.
It wasn't that bad. It was bad, but it wasn't like awful. If you want to watch it, watch it.
So
no,
Brittany,
I told them they could.
Who is the hottest ghost?
What?
I don't know.
Wait, where are you coming up with these questions?
I wrote these questions down to be intentionally odd because I wanted to see how a person would answer them.
Ghosts on tropical islands, I'm assuming, or ghosts in hell.
Got me.
Yeah, they're very warm. Yeah, she went literal with you. Wouldn't we have to
My first question that I wrote was, "What is the best ghost?" Which I thought that was that one was just magnificently vague.
That is Beetlejuice, obviously. He's the ghost with the most.
Clearly, it's the best. It's the best ghost because poor Tim Burton has been remaking that movie in some iteration for like 30 years. So.
They're gonna redo it. They're gonna redo it, and they're gonna do a sequel, and it is going to have what's his face as Beetlejuice again. Yeah, it's going to be Michael Keaton again. So, yeah, which was a good movie as well. They're going to redo Beetlejuice.
All right.
And if you think about it, all the principal people are still around. None of them have moved on and become real ghosts. So
we don't know that. Didn't Gina Davis die?
No, Gina Davis. No, her career did, but she's still with us.
Oh. I think she's
too easy.
She looks like these dolls my great grandma used to make out of pantyhose. Like, she's a real scary looking gal to me.
If I'm remembering this correctly, Gina Davis is actually an Olympic level archery person. You might have to Google that, but I remember she was on the Olympic archery team.
Can she'll be a love interest for Hawkeye in the next Avengers movie.
No, he's got a wife and kids. Why? Once again, you're just throwing things out and hoping it sticks at this point.
That's my whole life, babe. That's how I operate. I don't go for quality. I go for quantity. That's my sense of humor / the way I do everything. Oh my God! I totally forgot to tell you guys this. This is something scary that happened to me. It happened to me this friggin' weekend. So I'm sure Brittany, because Brittany is on Facebook, you probably saw this. So we stayed in this horrible Motel 6 this weekend when we went to Geekway.
Wait a minute, time out. Isn't that redundant?
What?
horrible Motel 6.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
No, actually, I was told that this was a better than normal Motel 6 because you didn't have to walk outside to get to your room. There was like an actual hallway. So we pull up, and there's like some young kids milling about in the parking lot, looking in the windows of cars, and we have thousands of dollars of our stuff in the car. So I get worried. We go up to the hallway. It reeks of cigarettes and pot. And then we go into our room, and it's like there must be a ghost in there smoking cigarettes because it was like just horrible. So I become very afraid that someone's going to steal, of all the stuff in my car, someone's going to steal my Netrunner stuff. So I go that I left in my car, forgot in my car whenever I packed it. So I go to my car to get my Netrunner stuff out. I get in the elevator. I go upstairs. Some frat boys with backpacks, and they're holding their backpacks with like their thumbs, like the straps, like you did in a high school. And like this one frat boy is like, he's like, "Whoever's smoking pot, come outside right now!" And so like I turn.
so did you go outside then? Or
No. So I turn, and he goes, "Say something, mother effer," to me, and I was like, and I just kind of like looked at him, and then I just looked back at the elevator, and I'm like, what? Like, what is happening in this place? So we wake up the next day, and I look over the mirror, and did you see these pictures that I put up?
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
There's a freaking there is a handprint of some variety on the wall above the mirror, like very high up on the wall. And I'm like, is that a friggin' bloody handprint? Like not like recently bloody. I'm not saying that there was like a ghost in the room, like menstruating and wiping its hand on the wall. I'm saying that it looks as though.
Why would you time? Couldn't you just said cut their hand on a broken glass?
Oh,
Or
I posted these
maybe they
pictures.
scraped their knee.
I posted. Brittany, weren't you the one who speculated that the
Yes,
ghost was on its
I made a joke, and you just blurted out the joke without context, and that's why it came out really weird on air.
So we see this handprint, and I'm like, what the hell? And so we go to pack, and like then we find another one on the corner behind the bathroom. And the thing that I thought was the saddest of this whole situation was that Nick and our reaction to this was not horror, disgust. It was, how can we leverage this into a complaint that will get us one more free night in this crappy hotel, which we managed to accomplish. And then whenever we showed this woman whose title was head of housekeeping, which I thought was amazing. She was just like some 20-year-old, girl.
Oh,
and
so she achieved some sort of success in her field, and you need to make fun of her. Well, that's good.
When I showed her my phone, she goes, "Oh man, somebody got jacked in that room." Like not even like, "Oh, I'm sure, sir, I'm sure it was just some sort of unfortunate pudding mistake that happened in there at some point." It was.
Oh my god!
Was totally willing to openly embrace the worst case possible, like that a murder, a homicide had taken place in this room, and that they were aware of it at some point and did not thoroughly clean up after it. It was so funny. Oh God, that was the talk
That's
of the
awful.
day. What'd you say, Brittany?
That's awful.
I don't understand how the person's hand got like to a height of like 6'7" above the mirror. Like they must have really been up to some wild stuff in this last days of Caligula-like scene that was taking place somewhere in the past. I don't know what the hell was going on there, but it looked like blood. It had to have been blood. It was like that brownish color that blood when it dries. It was yucky. And on that note. We've been talking forever. Brittany has yawned a few times. Her daughter has crept out of the shadows. Did she bring you a water or something?
She did. Then
Nobody has like an honest to goodness real spooky story. I mean that they
I
to tell?
told
I
you
mean,
the
like,
bear story. That was
yeah, but
terrible.
I mean, but that isn't like a real supernatural thing. Here, I'm gonna tell you my honest to goodness real life ghost story. This is completely true, and this is like the one thing that yes, I could possibly explain it away just because I had a trick of the eye or whatever. But this is something that like to this day I can still remember.
Brittany has a pillow. She's hunkering down for whatever this
Oh
is.
no, this is honest to goodness story. So when I was like 19, 20, 21 years old, I worked at this pizza parlor called Happy Joe's Pizza. It's a small chain of pizza places, and I was delivering a pizza, and there's a street in Fargo, in North Fargo, which doesn't matter to you one way or the other. But there's a street in North Fargo. It's called Elm Street, and then you think, "Oh, I'm at Elm Street," but no, it just happens to be called Elm Street because it goes past a couple of parks. One of the parks is Elmwood Park, and it follows the Red River of the North, which, if you followed your geography, is the very interesting thing that it is the only river in North America that actually travels north. So it's one of those cool things. But anyway, regardless, so I'm going down this road, and this road has twists and turns, and eventually it goes by this golf course. This it's called El Zagles, and it goes by this golf course. And when it goes by the golf course, it actually kind of dips down into this weird kind of, like, not really a valley or anything like that, but it kind of just it has this like kind of gentle, slowly rolling hill that goes down, and down at the base of this hill on the left, and then past is the VA hospital. It's in North Fargo, and it's right on the river. And then there's a parking lot, and it's a hospital. It's just a hospital, right? So anyway, I'm delivering this pizza. It's like 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and middle of summer. And I'm going down this hill. And see, the thing about this, it's kind of the road kind of twists and turns and it kind of moves around. And so I'm traveling on this road and going like 30, 35 miles an hour and just doing my thing. And I go down, and I'm driving next to the river. And as I'm about ready to come, then of course it climbs back up and gets onto a more level surface. And as I'm just getting to the base of this, right before I climb, I drove this 1976 brown Chevy Nova that I inherited from my grandfather, and I look over, and my headlights, and clear as day, I can still see their faces, and I see exactly what they look like. I remember the clothes they're wearing. I can remember the looks on their faces. I see an elderly couple, 10 o'clock at night. I see an elderly couple. I see the man is down on one knee, and he's clutching his chest, and he's holding out his hand, and this old woman is holding his hand, and she's waving me down. Like, look of terror, look of abject terror on her face, like waving me down for help. Well, I'm going like 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, right? And I just catch it, and I see it out of the corner of my eye, but of course then I look back, and it's like dark behind me because there's no street lights or anything down there. So I climb back up this hill, which is a good, maybe 50 yards, 60 yards. And there's no, like, it's kind of a narrow road, so I kind of have to, like, pull a weird U-ey, and so I'm like, oh my god, these people are trying to get to the hospital, right? So I turn around as quickly as I possibly can, which takes me a good maybe 5-6 seconds. I head back down the hill, nothing. Nobody there. There's no way they could. It's an open field. I turn the brights on. I turn my car around in like a little in a donut, looking to see if I could see them if they'd walked up, like, further down the road, further up the road, anywhere. They've completely vanished. It's like they never existed. But to this day, I know exactly what I saw. I saw those two people. And it spooks the hell out of me whenever I remember it. And that's my one. And I try to think, well, I wasn't drinking, because I was working, I was delivering pizzas. I wasn't tired because that was when I worked night shifts, and I would work until 1 o'clock in the morning. Then I'd go and I'd hang out for a while, and then I'd sleep till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd get up and I'd go to work. And this is the summer. I wasn't going to school, so I wasn't tired. I mean, it was just like, and it wasn't. And I always say, okay, yeah, your mind has this way of like filling in the blanks and like making a picture, but I mean, it wasn't like
It
like I
does,
saw
though.
like a. Well, yeah, but I mean, it's just it's such a crystal clear image in my brain, and it was.
Were you
I
on
just
any medications at the time? Like
none,
medical?
none. Yeah, nothing. I just other than I was high on life.
Because
I don't even think I had a girlfriend sucking my will to live at the time. I was just swinging single and having a great time. So
I
I
would
really
see
thought you were
weird
gonna say
things out
something.
of the corners of my eyes when I was a kid because of my heart medication. It just made me hallucinate, but it would always be like I'm sitting there in a car and I look over at the car next to me and I see some dude like smashing his face into the window and I go to actually look over and it's just a dog sitting there.
You,
It
you
was
know what?
weird.
You know what the profound irony of all this is tonight is. So we have a skeptic, a cynic, and a believer, and I'm the believer, and I've had zero contact with the supernatural.
well,
The
it's because they don't have to prove anything to you. What's the point?
then we have this. I want to call Brittany the skeptic here. Brittany has had all kinds of crazy crap happen. I don't know how you're skeptical at this point. I think your mom should be working for the X-Men from your description. Like, I expect to see your mother in the West Coast Avengers movie coming out next summer.
I don't
Um,
think they're gonna have a West Coast Avengers, are they?
did you not see that roster at the end of Age of Ultron?
Well, but yeah, but those are like the real Avengers, though. I mean, they're not
Those are
adding.
like the
I mean,
Real Housewives of Orange County. Those were like the worst Avengers I've ever seen.
oh,
They
well,
should be called Team Radio Shack. Like they should be all gadget people.
well, I mean, it's just I don't know. I mean, yeah, War Machine is worthless. Like yeah, like I think we talked about this. I,
Falcon.
I'm I'm the Falcon. What do you do? I can fly.
They should
What else
replace.
do you
They
do?
should replace
I can
Hawkeye.
fly.
They should replace Hawkeye with a guy who's really good at rock climbing.
Oh, I almost made a joke, but I'm gonna keep my mouth
So, and you're
shut.
the cynic, Lance, and yet you seem to have 400 stories, each of which takes 20 minutes to tell about
I
your
when I,
contact with the supernatural.
when I was a kid, I don't remember ever going into this house. But when I was a kid, no, listen to this. Listen to this. When I was a kid, when I was like 3 or 4 years old, my parents were still married. They haven't got a divorce. We lived across the street from one of what was called at the time one of the top 10 most haunted houses in the world, in the United States, not the world. It was this. I lived on 21st Street South, right next to the Fargo South High. It was a house that my parents had bought, and across the street and a house down was a house that was supposedly haunted by the farmer that had once lived there, because it was like this long stretch of houses. Every one of the houses looked the same except for this one house looked old, and it was because it was the farmhouse that was originally there, and the guy lost his farm and he killed himself inside the house. He either shot himself or hanged himself or something, and they said to this day that guy haunted that house because the government was coming to take his farm away. And my brother was best friends with the kid who lived in that house, and he said they'd be down in the basement and they'd be sitting there playing games and nobody else would be in the house, and they would hear the sound of like every single door or cupboard just being opened and slammed shut, just like loud, like somebody was upstairs and just ransacking the house or trying to break things apart, and they'd race up the stairs and everything would be nothing would have moved. It was just
That used to happen in one of our old houses too. It was weird.
and it just but yeah, it was at the time in like whatever it was 1976 or 4 or whatever. It was one of the top 10 most haunted houses in the United States. They had people come to that house and like stay overnight and turn on their little like recorders and trying to hear things and whatever. So you know, So I mean, you can buy into it or not. But I mean, my brother just still tells me stories about the stuff that he
This
saw.
isn't fair. This isn't fair that none of this crap happens to me.
Well, it's because you believe it right away. The ghost don't have to impress you. You just want to buy into it. You're the
Well,
one who believes
yeah,
that
but
crazy guy about the ancient aliens. So I mean,
if I'm an easy sell, why not come F with me? You know what I mean?
You already believe. They have no convincing to do.
Like they could
yeah,
message
exactly.
me, like they could de-sleeve all my board games or like take my books out of alphabetical order like on my shelves. Like I'd be dead in a week.
Don't worry, your daughter will do that in like no time.
My
If you're
child
looking,
would do that?
I just thought of this. I was going to mention this. You were talking about ghost movies. I mentioned this before on the album, but if anybody listens to this after the fact, find a movie called The Innkeepers, which is it like
It's
a lot of
weird.
scary movies. The final third, it loses a little bit of the steam that it builds up in the first 2/3 of the movie, but it is, as far as just like making a movie creepy, and without actually like having like the actual like ghost show up right away. That movie is very good. About two people. What a great idea too. Really really old hotel being shut down, and the last two people that are going to be working there like the last week that it's open or whatever. The two innkeepers. Just all of a sudden spooky stuff starts happening inside the hotel. Good stuff.
All right, and on that note, I think we should wrap up. We gotta wrap
Well,
it
no,
up.
wait. I had one other thing I wanted to say. I had
Oh,
one other thing.
God.
God, you shut your mouth. Hold on. I had something that we were talking. I was talking about haunted houses. I was talking about spooky stuff. Dang it. Talk amongst yourselves.
No.
I'm so I haven't had any like really strange adjective craziness out of you for this entire evening.
I'm trying to right the ship here.
Right the ship.
Yeah.
So you're kind of taking Brittany's job then.
In a way. I mean, because
Yeah.
you're doing your William Faulkner thing, so I've got to.
Why use 10 words when I could use 60?
True. I told Lance that the first time I saw his board game reviews, I was like, what in the hell is going on with this guy? What's up, William Faulkner? Because it was just like 5,000 adjectives strung together. And I found the game to be superfluously combinational in its myriad ways to capture and mesmerize. And I'm like, so wait, oh, you like the dice mechanic? Okay, that's
Mechanism. It's not. There's a guy wearing coveralls, saying, "Oh, you like that board game?" No, it's not a mechanic. It's a mechanism. I know. Either way, I just when I was lucky enough to have Scott Nicholson come to my house and play games at my house last summer, he gave me a schooling on the whole mechanism versus mechanic, and ever since then
I'll never say it again. All right, Brittany's yawning. This is our inaugural episode. We have proven our point that we can put anyone to sleep.
I'm usually in bed by like 10 p.m., okay? I can't help it.
No, it's
Aww.
okay. We're going to wrap this up, and we wanted to thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug, Brittany?
I don't believe any of the things that I said.
Do you want to plug anything like social media? You're going to be somewhere. Check this out. Check out
You can follow me on Twitter.
Brittany's mom in the ether every Friday, manipulating objects with her mind.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at GameWireGirl. That's the only place I'm cool with you following me, so.
Oh, gee.
Wait, me? What, did you point at me?
I don't know who she was talking to.
Everyone. Just Twitter.
Yes. Yeah. Just play nice and
Please
yeah.
don't add me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter.
No. If you follow her, trust me. Like and this is not a bad thing. She like she is a person that uses tweets a lot, but it's for her job, and so usually the stuff that she points out is actually very, very helpful if you're looking for the pulse of the hobby, if you will. So there you go.
She's a knowing individual.
Yeah, and she has access to a giant warehouse of games if things ever get really bad. So
I play a lot of games. Too many games.
you don't really believe it's too many.
Hmm?
You don't really believe it's too many.
No.
No, of course not. It's no. You are one of those. Well, you two, the both of you, are one of those rare, cool individuals where you're actually able to have a job with something that you enjoy, whereas instead of having a job where it's a paycheck.
It's true.
That's a fun job.
Interestingly enough, I don't get a paycheck, so yeah.
Well, you managed to you managed to prevent your wife from forcing you to get a real job with what you do.
I will continue to be a child into my 50s.
Well, that's a good attitude to have.
My daughter will have another kid to grow up with. It's going to be great.
You know, my gaming group, we all say we all have to retire to the same nursing home so we can continue to play Dungeons and Dragons every weekend.
That's my take too. I want a field of tiny houses for all of my board game friends, and then I'm never gonna leave. There's just gonna be a giant cabin with a billion Geek Chic tables in it and all the board games you can imagine, and that's my future.
Geek Chic tables? Whoa! I didn't even think about that option.
Yeah, I would be fine with just card tables that I had. I mean, as long as somebody else had to like open them up and what have you, because I'd probably be too old and rickety to do that anymore. But you know, one of the coolest guys, and sadly he's no longer with us, but he and his friend posted pictures on Board Game Geek, and tons and tons and tons of pictures of them playing board games, and they were both men well into their 70s. And I can't remember their picture. I can't remember their names right now. And I follow both of them. I actually subscribed to them on Board Game Geek, and they'd post pictures of them. And it wasn't like they were playing, oh yeah, we're gonna get together and play Canasta again or something. No, they were like, oh, they got together and they played Age of Conan, or they got together and they busted out Agricola and things like that. And I was
That's
just like,
so
God.
cute.
It was just awesome that's what they would do, and it was just and then it was one of those sad things where it's like, the older of the two passed away, and then like a year later the other one did. It was sad, but they got to do everything they wanted to do, so whatever.
Well, speaking of special relationships between two men, our next guest, was that a good segue? That was
it was great.
I thought that was pretty good, actually. Speaking of bears, we that's called a callback. So we're gonna have the Sadler brothers on for our next episode in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, that will be.
We got William Sadler, the actor.
No, Adam.
He was great in Die Hard 2. William Sadler.
Adam Sadler, which is
he's a really good general. Adam Sandler? You have Adam Sandler on next week?
Adam and
Adam gosh! Can we talk to him about anything, like his new Netflix movie, or do we?
Adam Sadler, who was the guy the lead designer behind Descent 2.0, and his
Adam Sandler designed Descent 2.0?
Yes, he did.
How is this the first that I'm hearing of this?
It's been a while, and his brother Brady, who I love,
You love Tom Brady?
I love Tom Brady and Adam Sandler. They're going to be our next guest, and we are going to actually be talking about the apocalypse. Is going to be the next topic. Well, it's really just a platform for us to talk about Mad Max, but the apocalypse. We will talk about Mad Max and me growing up.
Oh, if you haven't seen Mad Max, you got to go see it. Everyone who's listening to this, drop what you're doing, race to go online, buy your tickets, and go to that movie. It is
well, they can't go see the movie if they're listening to this podcast for 5 hours straight. So.
No, but that movie's amazing. But we can talk again. Brittanie, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate seeing you again. It's been too long.
It has. I'll come on the internet more often, maybe.
Well, we will all be together soon at Gen Con. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did you say often?
Hmm?
You said often.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you do you do laundry?
Do I
Like do you
do
clean?
laundry?
Yeah. Do you clean clothes?
No, my
Like
mom does that for me.
really?
with her mind.
My
Oh.
mom moved in with me because she
Okay.
was
Wait.
like, "Hey, I want to live in Seattle, but I can't afford it." And I was like, "Okay, do you want to live with me and do my dishes and laundry?" And she was like, "Yeah, that works."
Okay. So when your mom does your laundry, does she use fabric softener?
No, she uses fabric softener.
Hmm. Well, yeah, you pronounce the T and that's
Oh
silent and
boy.
often. So I was just like, I didn't know. Maybe you use fabric
I think you
softener.
know who you should haunt now. I think you should
No, no, no.
haunt
It's one of
Lance.
those things where it's like when I hear often, it's like and quite honestly, and I used to give people a lot of grief about it, but then I actually looked and um, Webster's actually in the last I think it was like 4 years ago actually agreed that often is an acceptable secondary pronunciation for the word often, which made me mad.
Brittany, when you haunt Lance, you should definitely mess with his beard. Dye his beard every color, so
Okay.
he looks like a human snow.
Somebody asked me the other day, like they were like how long it takes to grow a beard, and I honestly I don't know because
Nor
as
do
soon
I. This is like 6 months of not shaving.
because as soon as I as no as seriously as soon I haven't seen my chin since I went to a Metallica concert in like '97 and I did the Hetfield. I shaved like there and I had the big mutton chops and I went to the concert and then I just let it grow back and I don't have any idea how long it takes to grow a beard. None. And I have
Me
no
either.
idea. Yeah, well there you go. Fair enough.
Not yet, Brittany. It might happen. I was complaining to my grandmother that I can't grow a beard, and she said she didn't get hers until she was in her 50s. So
Okay. Good to know.
That that's
I'm
not
holding
creepy.
out. I want a beard so I can dye it.
I could see you doing that.
All right. Well, yes, Brittany, you need to sleep. You're gonna have to get up bright and early with that little munchkin of yours, and I suppose I have to get up and take care of my munchkins in the morning as well. And even Travis has a child that he has to take care of. So
Yes, and I said 90. I told us myself this would be 90 minutes at the most, and I did my very best. And I didn't. And you're right, Lance. I really wasn't my normal rambling self in order to try to keep us on pace. So I guess
no, I got to a point where I considered it a challenge to keep you talking. So
it's I know I'm the Barry of this show.
you are. Oh, the Barry. He would be a great third person.
All right, it's just slowly becoming Alaboom. All right, Brittany, thank you so much for coming on. I'll talk to you online soon. Check Brittany out where you
Just
said to, but not in the other place you said to.
go follow Brittany at GameWare Girl. That's correct, right, Brittany?
And
Yep.
that's the only
On
place
Twitter.
you'll follow her.
And yes, and you can find out everything you want to know about recent board game releases and cool contests and all kinds of things if you follow her on Twitter. So, all right, Travis, always a pleasure, my friend. Brittany, thank you very much for
All right,
coming
much
on,
love to the both of you. Talk to you soon.
and thank you to everyone who took the time to watch this and this historical historical in the making, whatever. And yeah, until next time, you have a great evening, and talk to you all soon.
All
Night.
right, take care.